ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me, Seth Varnadore, Robert Steeg. Guys, hashtag Goes Bros 23 is officially wrapped up for at least the December period. We made it. How we feeling?
Thank God. Tired.
Steeg has been all over this, so he's got to be breathing a sigh of relief right now.
It's a long. I mean, thankfully this year it was basically like a 2-week recruiting period for USF and Alex Golesh, so it wasn't quite as stressful as it had been in years past. It was pretty much as expected, so that was nice. It was nice and easy for me today. All I had to do was just follow along with what the house account was tweeting out, and bada bing, bada boom, we were done by 1 o'clock today.
Yeah, it was nice. I think the most important thing is no surprises and no bad surprises, I should say. That's always the worry. I think Oregon and UCLA both had interesting days. I think Florida had an interesting day. Status quo is very okay for this transition class, where they touched on some vital needs. They still need linebacker, Steeg. We'll get into that. But overall, thoughts on this class, and we'll kind of dig deeper into each guy and kind of where they may fit in as we go toward this 2023 season that kicks off, I guess, in earnest in like 10 days. Once that calendar hits January, baby.
I thought when we talked a little bit about it last night, that I thought one good sign, I guess, is kind of the ability to convert guys that visited officially. Like a lot of the guys that had official visits, they converted into commits. So you think that's a pretty good sign for the future. You got one kind of surprise, I guess, at receiver. But you signed some really quality guys in the portal too. I would think 4 guys that'll come in and be starters at their position almost immediately. 2 on defense, 2 on offense. So that's always good. And then you sign what seems to be a good, and this is something that a guy, Jay Bud Davis, I've had him on my channel talking about Florida stuff, but he's a stats guy that follows Florida, but he also does a lot of stuff on transfer portal and recruiting. And one of his big takeaways is that you can get like quarterback help and skill help and some defensive help in the portal, but you need to the most successful thing you can do is sign linemen out of high school, because you don't get a ton of really good linemen in the portal. So they signed 5 linemen today, I think. So one JUCO, but mostly high school guys that they can develop. And that seems to be the most successful strategy for the offensive line and a little bit on the defensive side as well. So that was good to kind of see them go young there, and then you can use the portal to fill out some of those other positions.
Yeah, as you mentioned that 5 offensive linemen. I think the trenches are probably going to be the most vital thing in 2023 for this team. You know, they're replacing Demetrius Harris, they're replacing Trey Jacobs, they're replacing Brad Cecil. Donovan Jennings will be back after his injury. He's basically using this 2022 season as his actual redshirt year, so he'll be back. But you've got to replace 3 guys who've played a lot of football, and you've got to fill in the depth, right? Because I would assume, you know, Seth, we kind of talked about it last night on the film room. Dustin Hall will probably slot over to center. I think one of the JUCO guys that they're bringing in is also a center, right?
I think he's a guard. I think somebody said last night he's a guard center. He can kind of play both. So interior O lineman Deontay Bowie, I guess, or from
Blinn, from Blinn, from Blinn College. I believe that's isn't that where Cam Newton went?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not going crazy there, but so there's options there. You still got Mike Lofton. You still have Darrell Bailey. There's still some other guys who are on scholarship. So just kind of adding to that depth, I think is going to be very, very important. I think we saw they were very injured at some points of the season at almost every position. So it's good to fill in that depth. I know, Steeg, you were kind of you were on the Dustin Hall train for like 3 years at this point. It feels like you feel vindicated at this point. He's going to be the center of the future more than likely.
Yeah, I mean, vindicated, but it's also like, is this the is this the Steeg, kiss of death? Because typically when I really vouch for a guy, they usually don't perform up to their standards or transfer, get injured or something like that. So God bless you, Dustin Hall. I'm backing you. You're the horse I'm going to be looking at here. Good luck. I haven't had good luck in the past, so all power to him. But yeah, I mean, you could tell that Golesh had an idea of what he really wanted to go after, especially having Coach Hoodie there kind of on board almost immediately, and knew what the most pressing, what should have been the most pressing need on this offense was, and they really attacked it. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and then you kind of add that to, like you said, Nate, a lot of guys did end up playing last year due to those injuries. So you got to see a lot of guys that coming into the year you didn't think were going to play. Then by the end of the year, they got playing experience, and they did pretty well. I mean, like, Batiste kind of run of those consecutive 100-yard games was not with the initial starting offensive line that you thought you were going to start at the beginning of the year. So
right,
it's kind of good to see you add some depth to that group, because that you were kind of having to dip into that depth last year. So if you do again, you've got some more bodies to go there. But they definitely, I think, saw a need. And they said they want to get to where they got, I think he said he wants like 8 to 10 linemen ready to go. So you're going to have to replenish that room, and they did a pretty good job of it, bringing in a mix of high school and JUCO guys. And I believe they also said they're not quite done there, so they might be going after more JUCOs and transfer portal guys as those come available, which I think after the bowl games, we're going to see another uptick in the transfer portal.
I think so too. And Coach Golesh kind of mentioned this during his press conference. He hopes to have most of his staff in place by the January 2nd visit weekend because of bowl obligations. And that is the same kind of thing for the players, right? So some guys are going to play out the string, do the bowl game, get the free swag, and kind of figure out what's next for them. We'll see what's what with that. I know, kind of looking into the portal right now, defensive line and linebackers, the pickings are slim. So we're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, and it seems like there's some back channeling going on. I know, just kind of having eyes on Florida and USF. Florida got commitment from a Memphis defensive lineman, according to one Florida beat reporter, but that guy's not even in the portal yet. So I think there's going to be a bunch of – so that one got retracted quickly. But I think there's a bunch of guys you're going to see jump in the portal here to kind of add to that depth, because like you said, there's not a ton, and the ones that are decent, I think, already got picked over. So you might have to wait a little bit, but – you'll have some come up kind of at the end of this cycle, and then I think once you hit the next window, you'll have some more guys you can go get. But at least you're kind of looking for depth pieces and not looking for like guys that got to come in and play right away, it seems. So that's a good spot to be in. But there's still some positions where you are looking at guys that need to come in and play.
Right. And I think defensive line's definitely one that fits such bill.
Yeah.
So they bring in Centavious Smith from Dougherty High School in Albany, Georgia. He was a 84.8489, a 3-star. This is all 247, kind of just blanket 247 numbers. And then you also bring in Lloyd Summerall, who was a 4-star coming out of high school at Florida. He spent a year at Florida, Seth, and got some
he's
run
been there for like 3 years.
Holy crap!
Yeah, he's been there for
Good
a
for
while.
him.
He almost transferred last year.
Okay.
They got him to come back. I think he might even gone in the portal and came back last year. But he was a guy that played a decent bit this year. I don't have his exact snap numbers. He wasn't a starter, but he played and did not look out of place.
Okay.
They had him moving around. He's a kind of a leaner guy, but he's got some athleticism and it could be probably a pretty good pass rusher, or if you're going to 3-4, like that outside linebacker that's more of the pass rush guy, but can drop into coverage if you need to.
Like
he
a
can be that.
JPP almost.
I wouldn't put those kind of expectations on him.
Well,
but
that kind of.
I think he's kind of a tall, athletic, kind of lengthy guy. I think he has 10 fingers, but other than that, they might be pretty similar.
I think that those were two massive gets. I think the writing was on the wall when KP came to USF that Stentavius was also more than likely joining him here in Tampa. It makes a lot of sense. They have a very good relationship. Kevin Patrick does a fantastic job developing defensive linemen, and you kind of go where you're wanted, where you think you can play, and boy howdy, these guys are going to get some run. Now the interior of the defensive line, fellas, I got nothing for you. And
I'm going to be sued.
Neither did the recruiting class so far. So there's
much
that.
to the chagrin of message board posters across Bulls fandom, they did not get any big boys. Yeah, but I think they're going to be going. It seems like they're going to be going to a 3-4 type look. So maybe you don't need a ton of noses, or you might feel like you have some depth at nose, but you'll kind of need some big bodies to play the ends as well. Not as big, but maybe you might be able to get away with less, maybe in that scheme. But this is kind of the trap that got fallen into a couple years back when you're switching fronts and things like that, and you're not quite sure what the body count you need is. But just they need to get better there, obviously, and healthy. They had some guys get hurt. It seemed like they were starting to play pretty well at times last year. So the combination of that and getting some more bodies in there, you'd hope it leads to better results. But
yeah, what's funny is in the way that we broke down Todd Orlando's very aggressive defensive style on the film room on Tuesday night. I think Dwayne Boyles would have been really fun in this kind of defense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but we'll see. I think DJ Gordon could be something of note there. Oh my God, Seth, who's the dude who transferred out DeMars Bellamy. Nah, he would have been fun. That would have been a fun one. Hector, real quick. So Byron Matos is listed as an offensive lineman on the roster now. Just a quick FYI.
That happened in the middle of last year, right?
So, you know what? I never noticed it. I never noticed it on the game sheets, but I did notice it the other day perusing the 2023 online roster, which is where I saw that Xavier Weaver is still with the team, and Alex Golesh confirmed that he is still with the team, and he is excited to see him catch a lot of balls and rack up a lot of yards. And man, oh man, do you think he finally cracks 1,000 yards?
I think he'll get a shot. He'll get a shot. If any system was going to get a guy to crack it, it would be this one. The receiver position is really exciting, especially with him coming back. You've got those guys that were kind of injured and kind of hobbled for most of last year. In this system, it'll be interesting to see how they do. Joe is going to be really interesting to see. Obviously a Jeff Scott guy, but he's also got, until he graduates, he doesn't have a free transfer. So I don't think he's got I don't think he's graduated yet. So he's probably going to be playing this year at USF, and he's a guy that's got all kinds of physical tools. Not a I don't think a real crazy fast guy, but we'll see. We haven't really got a chance to see him kind of get out and go.
No.
So that'll be fun, but I think they're going to have some pretty good tools there at receiver, even with a guy like Jimmy Horn out of there. So 1,000 yards for Weaver. I mean, what did he finish at last year?
I think he had
700 something.
I think he was pretty close, and he didn't play the last 2 games,
right?
Just about. Let's look this up real quick.
Do I sound better, by the way?
Well,
is it like bubbly or am I Rabati?
Not Rabati, but definitely a little bubbly, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's better. I'll deal with that.
It's not me this
time. It's
my
microphone for once. Yeah.
He is battling his initial his Wi-Fi went in the transfer portal as well a couple of days ago, and he's said to replace it. So
we're having a rough couple of days in this household. I'll tell you that.
It's all fun and games till the internet goes out.
Right. Xavier Weaver played in 9 games. He caught 53 balls for 718 yards and a career high 6 touchdowns. The receptions and yards are all career highs for him. And he missed Louisville, and then he missed the last 2 games. Well, he didn't miss; he sat out the last 2 games. So there's that. But it's interesting. See, you kind of mentioned it. You mentioned it in Slack, and we were like, I don't know, because it seemed like you only tweeted one thing today. Is Daniel DePrado still on staff?
Good question. Golesh got asked that directly today, to which he gave a nothing burger answer, kind of like, we want him to stay on staff. We're working through some things.
I think his answer implied some things when he talked about how professional he's been. Usually, you don't talk about how professional somebody's been when he's just going to stay in the same job. Usually it's that when you're like, hey, you need to finish recruiting for us, and then you can go wherever you want. Like, help us out a little bit here.
Right. And in full disclosure to everyone, like when these coaching staff turnovers kind of happen, say, for instance, like Daquan Bowers, for example, when Golesh came in, it wasn't like he came in and fired everyone on staff immediately and then was hitting the ground running by himself. He was still working with Daquan Bowers, with some of the other staff members, and maybe Bobby Bentley or whoever else, Alan Mogridge, whoever else was kind of there. And they're pretty much there until they get replaced, essentially. And it's kind of the business side of things. It's the same thing in the corporate world. You work until you get fired or you sign termination papers or whatever it is. So DePrado was still working and was still recruiting and, was going on visits. Like, he went to a kid's house in Texas to visit a kicker. So, he was definitely still working, but this is obviously all still a two-way street too. I'm sure DePrado wants more title, more responsibility, whatever it needs to be. I know he loves special teams. I know he loves and has that passion and everything like that, but he might be, gearing more towards wanting like an associate head coach role or something, because now he kind of has that blood in him. He could be on staff. He could be just working through, title change, head coach, and whatever else it needs. But he was very quiet today, and this is usually the most vocal day for a guy like DePrado. So who knows? We'll see, though.
Did you see him in any of the video that was put out today of kind of the war room? I'm trying to think back. I watched it, but I don't remember seeing him.
He wasn't really there. He could have been there, but just not.
Yeah, not
like videoed or not. They probably very, very did a really good job of editing it, so he wasn't in it. I would imagine he was.
I wouldn't put that. I wouldn't say that was in the thought process.
Steve, now you're giving a lot of credit where credit is clearly not deserved.
I had something else to say, but I can't say it.
I was really I saw so I can't. My apologies.
Hold on 1 second. I might not that one. Hold on. We'll have to get a Steeg is a Prado fan, so we'll see. Is that his head right there? Is that the back of his head?
That could be, but that could also. I think that's their
Ooh, I don't
new
know, yeah.
analyst.
No way.
It looks a different, kind of a different facial structure.
Yeah, it's a different face. Nope. Nope.
They hired a stand-in like Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just so nobody knew.
I saw someone today. My apologies if I can't remember who it was, but they were when you were kind of mentioning, although they took down 2 of the offensive lineman commit graphics for one reason or another. One may have had the wrong video. One wanted to announce before he committed, before they announced it. Someone was like, "Who's excited to know who's the next offensive lineman?" I thought that would have been a really. I thought that was really funny. But my apologies. I honestly can't remember.
I think it was USF recruiting news.
Oh, maybe it was it. I got a very big chuckle out of that at work and had to quickly compose myself.
Not the Prado confirmed. I watched the video. It's not it.
See, there we go. This is what we do. So I saw a question up there from Chris Ochoa. Seth, if you want to throw that up there real quick. Do you see it?
Which one? This one.
The roundtable one?
Yeah.
Which recruit signed today do you think will have the biggest impact early on? Do we want to go? We'll do high school, JUCO, and then we'll pick one from the transfer list because I feel like we would all pick a transfer, honestly. But of the guys who have from high school who signed today, who do you think could have the biggest impact? I'll start with Seth.
Trade, is it Dubuque? The long snapper. I don't know. Maybe a guy like Jarvis Lee. I don't know, because you're kind of you signed a lot of linemen, which I don't think you'd anticipate them playing early. Most of them, and then you're pretty set. Some of your other positions that you signed are, receiver and running back. You signed some pretty good guys there. You seem pretty set there. It's going to be hard to crack that rotation for any of those guys, I think. So that would kind of leave you with one of the defensive guys. So maybe a Jarvis Lee. He's kind of your highest rated recruit right now. Corner, maybe he comes in and plays early. Byards plays safety. Stantavius Smith we just talked about, but I think that's tough to play on the line of scrimmage. I've heard people say the further away you are from the ball, the quicker you can play. So I would think one of those guys, the defensive back, has a chance to make something happen early. Long term, I really don't know. I don't know enough about these guys really to say, but I think if you're really like the guy that gets on the field earliest might be the long snapper.
That's fair. Steve, how about yourself?
Yeah, it's hard because a lot of these pieces are really, really good pieces out of high school, but high school players tend to not play early unless it's a quarterback and they're being thrust into that situation.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of say like, oh, and then like Jalen Johnson, who I think Jalen Johnson is severely underrated on 247. I think he's probably going to end up being reshuffled into a 4-star. But that's at like one of the most stacked positions for USF where there's a lot of depth and talent there already. My inkling is a guy like Demetrius Carter. It seemed like on the night that Golesh was hired, it seemed like he made a call to all of the recruits, or at least that's kind of the inkling that I was getting. And he's a guy that really fits the mold of what they want to do in Golesh's offense. And with kind of the exodus of a few, a Jimmy Horn there, the offense is going to be proficient one way or another. I think you're going to see a lot of young, taller talent start to creep in and play a little bit more. And so Demetrius Carter is probably my guy. His coach had some very, very high end words to say. And it's a wide receiver in this offense. Like he's going to make an impact at some point in his career. Everything else is a crapshoot. Like the offensive linemen, they probably won't play for like 2 to 3 seasons. I love all 5 of those offensive linemen, but I can't see any of those guys playing for 2 or 3 years at the best.
No, absolutely. I think you're right there. And Seth, you kind of touched on it. I think it may be one of the DBs, like Jarvis Lee, as you mentioned, or Taufik Bayard. I think could get on the field just because they need bodies. They need people. I know Taquan Evans is no longer in the portal, and it seems like he's on the roster again. So you get a bounce from there, but it's going to be tough for everybody. Like you mentioned, the offensive linemen kind of get on the field. I think Jalen Johnson, I think he's going to be really fun to watch in the future. I don't think he's a right now guy. He's listed at 5'9", 190. We'll see what he actually comes in at, because that's pretty stout for a guy who's 5'9" at running back. It's not crazy. It's not Jaron Mangum, who's gone off to Michigan State stout, but it's pretty stout for the size. And then of the transfers, you got Neem Simmons, the wide receiver from Wagner, Kendall Dennis, the cornerback from Oklahoma, Lord Summerall, and Weston Wolf. Of those 4 guys, who do you guys see making maybe the most impact out of them?
I mean, I think they're all going to play pretty much right away and do something. I know Weston Wolf comes from a really good high school program. They use the tight end quite a bit. He's a pretty good player. Summerall, we talked about, was seeing time at Florida and playing a little bit and doesn't look out of place. So I think he'll come in, and he's a guy that could have, he could, come in like a 3-4, be an outside backer, which he got a little bit of. Florida did a little bit of that as well this year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got some experience with that, being a guy that might have to drop, might have to come off the edge. So he might be a guy he's a little bit more athletic, I think, than some of the guys they have now. Like Tramel Logan kind of beefed up and is a little thicker. He's still got some athleticism, but Summerall is, I think, a little twitchier, a little more explosive. So I think he'll probably, I would have met. But the 4 they've got are all going to come in and play right away. And Simmons is a guy that's explosive, depending on, how the receiver room shakes out. I would think he'd be coming in to play the slot. He's not a huge guy, but 5'10", seems pretty explosive on film, running away from people. So he's going to play. Kendall Dennis is a 4-star kid. They obviously are looking for guys at corner, so he's going to come in and play. Like I said, Wolf, good program, coming from Maryland. He's probably going to come in and play quite a bit. First recruit or first commit. So I think Golesh probably likes him a lot. But I'll go Summerall with that group. I think he's a guy that's got some athleticism and he can rush the passer, which, they need those guys off the edge. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see Simmons because he's coming from a smaller program, but he looks explosive and he can kind of be that, almost kind of come in for the Jimmy Horn slot there and hopefully don't miss a beat there on offense. But
Steeg, what about yourself?
Yeah, knowing what Todd Orlando's defense has to offer, I think a guy like Kendall Dennis is going to be a guy that can really flourish. Depending on where they throw him, if it's like a hybrid, safety, nickel, whatever it needs to be. They tend to be the defense tends to be one that tries to take away, get interceptions, force fumbles. He was a bruiser when he was at Lakeland. So I'd imagine that, they'll probably slot him into a similar position going forward, in this defense. And I mean, that secondary is loaded already. There's a lot of really good talent there. Amaris Brown, Daquan Evans is coming back. So you got a lot of really good talent that's kind of getting held over and can really benefit from a much more aggressive style of defense than what Shoop and Glenn Spencer had to offer. But Lloyd Summerall, Kevin Patrick has his tendencies to make guys really good along that defensive line, and he's a guy that I think everyone is going to be looking at to really lead this defense a little bit more. I'd also venture to say I'll take the field on this one. someone asked a minute ago about the defensive tackles, the linebackers, everything like that.
Right.
They still have about 9 open scholarships. They'll probably fill those between about half of those through the portal, maybe half of those, through high school. Imagine they'll get some defensive tackles and some linebackers, maybe another wide receiver through the portal. So I could also say, let's just take the field here. There's going to be a defensive tackle they're going to pull in that's going to do some work, and a linebacker that is going to, be an instant impact guys, because those are both really thin positions for USF. And the defensive end and cornerback position isn't quite as thin. So, Lloyd might end up being a rotational guy, and Kendall might end up being, every once in a while kind of thing. So I'd venture to say the field, whatever the defensive tackle that they bring in, is going to be good enough.
Fair. And I'll take Summerall as well. I think he has the biggest opportunity to make the immediate impact that is sorely needed along this defensive line. At least on paper, there's some talent along the defensive line. At least between Eddie Kelly, Tremo Logan's actually still pretty good. Now you bring in Summerall. I think there's some talent there. How they get utilized, that's going to be a bigger question. Real quick, I wanted to kind of go over the coaching staff for a second, because there's still some spots up for grabs. So if we're thinking under the guys that Prada was gone, right, that he's no longer on staff, we've got the tight end Craig Patterson, right? Tight end's coach, was that his name?
Clay Patterson.
Clay Patterson. Clay Patterson, he was the interim at Colorado and the offensive coordinator. So he's at tight end. Inside linebacker is going to be, from what I understand, it's Todd Orlando. So now you're left with outside linebackers. They haven't hired a safeties coach yet, right?
No.
Because Matt Burkett is...
This is what I've got right now. So this is kind of the latest.
Now it seems like the wide receiver coach is going to be the Georgia Southern guy. Marcus Davis, is that the guy's name?
Wide receivers coach from Georgia State. Yes, that's who I've heard his name get tossed around a lot. They're not in a bowl game, are they?
No, I don't believe so.
No, I don't think so.
So that's why I think it might be someone else, because it sounds like there were some other duties from certain people. But Marcus Davis does make sense, at least when I'm reading the tea leaves. But there's a chance it's someone else, and it's someone from the field here.
Is he from Georgia State?
Yes.
All right, so their receivers coach is Quinshaw Davis, who was a quality control guy at USF.
Oh no, excuse me. Sorry, Georgia Southern. I fricked that up so much. I'm reading the tea leaves on this one. That he's coming here, but again, they're not in a bowl game either. And
yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Oh, they are?
Georgia Southern.
They play Buffalo next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
Georgia State is not in a bowl. Georgia Southern.
I big time fucked that up. Then that's a good possibility that it is Marcus Davis, and he's just fulfilling his duties. They can't lose both their running backs and wide receivers coach leading into a bowl game.
You say that, but
well,
maybe
he'd be an interesting one. He played at Auburn for 4 years. Was a starter on their 2014 runner-up team that lost to FSU. From Florida, Boynton Beach, so from South Florida. He'd be an interesting one. Coached at Hawaii, coached at Florida State. He'd be an interesting candidate. Also coached at Auburn a little bit. So I think that'd be a pretty good get if that's your guy. He's Florida ties, coached in the state already, played for Auburn, so would be a pretty good get.
It seems like Van Dyke got a pay bump
Well, hey, we'll see if Cormani McLean goes to Colorado, they might push him out. Maybe I don't know. He's supposed to be their number one guy. So,
but it definitely seemed like they got him. They paid to keep him.
Yeah,
I would think.
It's strange because a defensive analyst at Miami versus a safeties coach at USF, which one would you rather have kind of situation, but he's still a possibility. I'm less optimistic, and so we'll see who they go after, and I've got nothing else on that one. That's really the only one that I've heard for that position. Especially if it's a 3-3-5, they're going to need a corners and a safeties coach. So,
and they're going to need a special teams coach. So someone's going to have to get that title thrown onto them as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'll probably just piecemeal that out with, O-line coach is the kick protection team, safeties and corners coaches are doing punt return and all that. They can kind of piecemeal it out. It's not ideal, but when you're trying to stay in that coaching limit there, you got to.
Yeah. And
right.
I mean, real quick.
This is why. So Van Dyke's coming and he's bringing Cormani to US. That's why they're waiting.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So what was it in June? I think it was in June. They were kind of kicking around doing away with the on-field coaching staff limit or the recruiter limit. I'm kind of glad that they kind of punted on that for now. I think a lot of these G5 schools would be in some serious trouble.
Well, you know which way I think it's going to be going eventually is it's basically it's going to be total NFL. You're going to have an on-field staff, and then you're going to have a recruiting staff, and the recruiting staff can go out on the road full-time and recruit. Your on-field staff can just work, because one of the big things you're hearing from coaches is with the portal, and that's why they were kind of begging for the transfer windows. Before that, they're like, I can't take a single day away from the job, and it's getting a lot of coaches to leave the game. Well, one way you don't have to worry about burnout as much as if you don't have to recruit. So I think they might. I think in maybe 10 years' time, you'll see those two split, and that'll be tough for the G5 lower levels where you got to pay a lot of people now.
Yeah, and $4 million only goes so far these days. So
that's right.
And luckily, they increased their pay for the coaching staff here for USF, so that's cool. Got an extra extra $1 million almost for the coaching staff. So
well, Steeg,
don't get me started. We're not. This is a family-friendly show.
No,
we dropped too many F-bombs.
But Steeg, from what I understand, nearly $1 million is. I mean, $750,000 is also nearly $1 million, from what I understand.
So 75% there.
Some would say 90% there.
Do it. Just do it. I'll set a timer. You can do it.
Nope. Give it to the end. Let's finish out the recruiting stuff, and then I can go on my 75-minute rant while you guys go and finish out your night.
Just keep it rolling. That's fair. I think we kind of knew Jimmy Horn was never going to come back, and I don't think he's signed yet, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he's doing it Christmas or the day after Christmas.
Well, that's nice of him.
As a Christmas present type deal.
That's cute.
But it seems as if he's down to 2.
Colorado and Houston?
Houston, yeah.
He saw what little man Tank Dell did in that offense and thought, I could do that.
It's just that position is basically like the we hate Nathan Bond position.
It really
they're gonna take out Tank Dell and cycle in Jimmy Horn.
Oh my god! I'm just glad we don't have to face them.
Yeah, I was like, man, Houston. I was like, oh yeah, they're moving up. So But Colorado would be interesting.
It would. That'd be an interesting offense. Especially, I mean, do you think? I mean, this is total tangent. Is Dion going to let Sean Lewis run the offense like how he wants it run, or is it going to be?
Yeah, I think so.
That's good.
So they'll be high flying, and they'll look similar to what USF is. Actually, they'll be pretty similar.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But I mean, I guess the most important recruiting haul so far is mending fences with Xavier Weaver and getting him back on board. That was the one where after the season ended and he still hadn't entered his name in the portal, it kind of, I don't know, perked my ears up a little bit like, huh, he still hasn't entered the portal. And I was talking to some folks and they're like, yeah, it's real weird. He hasn't entered the portal yet after skipping out on the last 2 games. And lo and behold, they released that hype video this morning with a whole lot of Xavier Weaver highlights because he's a very good player. And then Golesh confirms it as such. And I think, man, they would have been in some trouble if he had left as well. Because now I was just looking at the stats real quick. Let me bring this up.
Well, it's a good thing they watched the tape so you could see that Xavier Weaver's a pretty good player.
Yeah. So if Weaver had left, your returning wide receiver would have been Sean Atkins at 19 catches, 238 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 3 of your top 4 guys would have transferred out, being Weaver, Horn, and Dawson, who's now at JMU. And then the only other receiver who would have caught a touchdown this season, who's still with the team, would have been Daquan Stanley because Weaver, Horn, and Atkins. So 4 of your 18 touchdowns would be back from the receiver room, and then somehow the tight ends have 4 touchdowns as well. So, but not Gunnar Greenwald, but
amazing.
Incredible.
I
Chris
think
Carter had 3 catches for 9 yards and a touchdown.
That's right, baby.
That's efficiency.
Speaking of efficiency, you are getting probably the nation's leader in yards per catch coming back, so that's good.
That is neat. I think that was kind of something that got brushed under the rug, especially with in Golesh's press conference today was, this wasn't Golesh and his staff just recruiting the high school and JUCO and transfers and everything like that. He also had to do a lot of peacemaking and have difficult conversations and have not so fun and have really fun conversations with his own players, the guys that were committed on the team and some guys that were also in the portal. And I'd imagine he reached out to Jimmy Horn and said, hey, you're welcome back if you want. Jimmy saw the NIL deals and said, no, thank you. But
said I'm good.
He said I'm good. But I think that's an underrated thing. And he even mentioned the fact that, he gave kudos to those players. He had about 15 or 20 of those guys host the kids on the official visits the last 2 weekends. I think that's a big thing that speaks to kind of the relationship that Golesh is already building with the players. We all joked about it, but we're also very serious about it that, his priorities in the offseason were keeping Byron Brown and keeping Brian Battie and seeing if you can get Weaver to come back and maybe seeing if you can get Jimmy Horn to come back. And he did 3 out of the 4 things. We haven't seen anyone else enter the portal since, everything else was going on. So, I'd imagine that that's going pretty well for him. We all talk about that alignment fact of it, and it seems like that alignment is still holding strong. This is also barring he's coming into spring with a fresh slate. He said he's not going to have any preconceived notions on anyone. I doubt he's going to, hold up a blank piece of paper like good old Jeff Scott did, but he might allude to a similar thing where in the spring there's going to be no depth charts and let the guys, kind of work for those starting positions and see who kind of wins out. And then after the fact, maybe guys will transfer because, when you're 4th on a depth chart, you may not want that. So I think the progress that Golesh has made from his hiring date to today to minimize the amount of damage and maximize the talent coming back in, I think that's a pretty big deal.
He has watched film. Eric.
Okay.
Yes, he has. He said that early on in his press conference, I
Yep.
think in his introductory one. So
Oh, and the other news, I guess, from the press conference is a good segue. Is it looks like Gary Bohannon is going to be out for the spring, at least for a little bit. So this might be an interesting route for Byron Brown to take the things by the reins and by the horns and whatnot. So it'll be interesting. But Gary seems like a team player kind of guy. I doubt that's going to really affect, upset the apple cart too much like we had last year.
yeah, I wonder when spring is. He said he's going to miss it, rehabbing the shoulder. So I wonder if it's going to be an early spring, or if he's going to
Like late
push it.
February, early March.
Yeah, I
kind
wonder
of
if he's
thing.
going. I wonder if he's going to go early.
I mean, I think over the last like 5 or 6 years, like the spring games have been like April, basically around tax day.
Yeah,
Just about. I don't know if they push that. 'Cause he got hurt. Got October. So
Tulane
October,
game.
yeah. October, November, December. Like 8-month recovery. Like he must have really jacked up his shoulder.
That should be plenty of time. I tore my labrum and my rotator cuff my freshman year of college. It took like, I think it was like a 4-month recovery or something like that. But I heard in August, I was probably good to go in July or February. So, or not July, but January or February. So I wonder how bad it was.
Yeah. That's
It probably
gonna be-
hurt.
October 15th was the day of the game.
So we're October, basically
2
2 months
months?
removed, 2 months and a
Mhm.
week removed. Yeah, so I mean, I guess a 6 to 8 month recovery would put him past the spring game and into the summer, I guess.
Fun. So we're going into the spring with that's fun. Good.
I mean, you
Love
get
it.
you get a you don't have to worry about splitting first team reps.
Jordan Smith
Yeah.
may actually see the field.
Hey, let's
Are
get
we
it.
we're gonna carry the rosters into the new year?
Yeah, I mean, Gunnar Smith should probably get some run.
That's true.
Ryan Bolduc.
I liked his film in high school. I thought he was a pretty decent player too.
I did too. I'm excited for what Byram can do in this offense. I mean, both. Once again, I don't think the quarterback position is going to be an issue coming into this year. I think we can probably safely say it wasn't the issue this past season. I think if
No.
Jeff Scott had maybe watched game film, he'd still be around. Before jumping on board here 3 years ago, I think that really set him back. And Seth, I don't know if you said this on air or off air, but we were kind of talking about like what the F happened we were talking about it last night, like what the F happened. And it's like, oh, he probably thought it was COVID and kind of didn't really get a true assessment of what was really wrong with the program.
I think he came in. To me, looking back at it now, we joke about like the not watching film thing. I'm sure he watched some, but
Seth, I honestly gun to my head, I don't think he watched a lick of film.
But we
I don't think
also
he did
know that he didn't exit interview the last staff, which is insane to me. Like those guys will give you information; they're not gonna be mad and hold it from you. This is how the business works. Like that's why DePrado is still out recruiting, even though he may not be retained here. That's kind of how it works. That's kind of the gig, right? But looking back and thinking about that kind of stuff, it's like maybe he just came in super naive and just thought, you know what? All I got to do, these guys didn't know what they were doing. All I got to do is throw the Clemson way down here. And we'll roll because it's always worked. It'll work here. And then after the COVID year, he was probably thinking, well, it did not work because it was not going to work here. It didn't work because of COVID. So let's do it again. And then so you kind of lose a year of maybe being able to reassess things and take a real critical look at why things worked and why things didn't. Because, I mean, look around the country, so many things. Like you go back and you talk about like Penn State had a really bad year in the COVID year. I was like, yeah, it's COVID year. It doesn't really count. Like, but as a first year head coach, maybe it masked some of the things that you needed to fix. And if you didn't notice that because you just kind of blamed it all in the COVID year, well, now you're a year behind and we saw what happened. So yeah, that was my kind of take looking back. I think there's just kind of some mistakes made early and maybe got compounded by not having a critical enough eye.
Probably. I do want to mention two funnier things that happened in this press conference that made me love Alex Golesh so much. Was the fact that the first one was that his family's not going to be moving down until like May or something like that. And he said he's going to be sleeping in his office on the couch. Just absolute football guy material. Love that. And then the fact that he mentioned Portillo's, like, he mentioned Portillo's about as often as Jeff Scott mentioned Clemson in his press conferences. That man was so excited to find out that there's a Portillo's like not even half a mile from campus. And his delivery when he said it was the funniest fucking thing on earth. It was like, I don't know what prompted the question or what prompted this answer, but he goes like, I learned there's a Portillo's over here, which, man, that's got me excited. Like, really Mike McDaniels, the Miami Dolphins coach, really similar to Mike McDaniels and how he does it. Seth, I can send you the tweet if we can pull that up, because honest to God, it was the funniest fucking thing that I've ever heard from a press conference from USF. That was not like a mistake funny. Like, this was just him just being a dude.
Guys being dudes, man. Goes being bros.
He loves bro. He loves man. He loves those terms.
He loves saying baby.
Oh, I listen. I love this guy's got a great lexicon, in my opinion. Great vocabulary. He's got to be like feeling so good as somebody with 3 kids. He's got 2 kids. I'm sure he misses his kids and all, but man, he can go eat whatever he wants. He can go to Portillo's 8 times a week if he wants to. Like, he's just living it up down here.
This man is living like a bachelor lifestyle. He's sleeping on a couch in his office.
Getting back to his GA roots. Yeah.
I mean,
I want like, if any USF people are listening, I want like a day in the life of of Alex Golesh while he's not living here, like in a house. Like, I want to see what he's like, if he's showering down in the locker room where he's like, I want the camera following that man for full like 18-hour days. I know this man's waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to bed at 1 at this rate. So
maybe he's got like the little cot built in under his desk, like George Costanza.
Right,
just go under there, catch a little bit of some Z's down there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible stuff from him.
Guy. I love him.
Very likable guy so far.
Yeah, that's the thing with his shtick though, is that like, and I was talking to one of my friends about this with Mike McDaniels. It's like, this shtick is great when you win football games. This guy that's just very deadpan and
right.
It's on his mind and everything like that. But like, in Mike McDaniels, like, what the hell do you say when you're losing like 15-0 at halftime? Like, is this the guy that's gonna like take it seriously, kind of thing? Golesh doesn't give me the implication that he's like this goofball like Mike McDaniel is, but those are the kind of things you have to think about, and that was something with Jeff Scott as well. As he was very good at certain things. And pumping up the team was not one of them.
You ever seen Major League 2?
Have I ever seen Major League 2?
Right. So when Jack Parkman, the catcher, is on your team, right? He's on the Cleveland Indians. the announcer says he's got this shimmy that makes all the women in Cleveland like riles them all up, right? And then as soon as he goes to White Sox,
what's the actual line, Seth?
I can't remember. I just lost it, but I know the when he's on the White Sox, he does that little shimmy. It makes all the women in Cleveland puke. And it's the same thing. It's just like if you're winning, it's great. If you're losing, it becomes grating and annoying, right? So, like all the Florida people loved Dan Mullen. He was quirky. He was weird. They started losing. Like, this guy's a weirdo, a loser. Look at his pants. He doesn't know how to dress. It's like, all right, like it's the same exact guy. All right, so hold on. Let's see. You got a tweet here from Steeg. Let's throw that up, I suppose, here.
I learned there's a Portillo's over here, which man, you talk about excitement. So I'm a Portillo's guy. I'm a food guy. So that part of it has been phenomenal. This is an incredible food city. That's exciting. I have not lived in the greatest food cities in America. If you look at my bio, that I am really excited to be at a place where Portillo's, among other things, I'm really excited about. So Portillo's, if they're looking for some sort of gift, I'm all in.
Which big shot fired up north to our friends in Orlando, whose best barbecue restaurant is a chain.
Is it Sonny's?
Four Rivers.
No Sunny slander.
Yeah, they just the early signing day press conference. Like, this man should be like talking about like, oh yes, like Demetrius Carter, he's gonna go for over 1,200 yards, and Lloyd Summerall, what a program change. This man's up there talking about fucking Portillo and how excited he is. God, I love him.
I like this idea from Eric.
Yes, that's a good one. I mean, there's really not much to say. You know, I'm just glad there wasn't any bad surprises. We knew going in what we were getting with this class. It's a pretty good class, and I will say, so kind of going through the decommits that after Jeff Scott was fired. Just looking at them real quick. Where'd it go? I just had it. So you've got the tight end Anthony Miller Jr. From Duluth, Georgia, who has not signed anywhere yet. He's the only guy who decommitted that has a higher rating than any of the guys that USF signed. Like at the top, like he's the top. He would be the top ranked guy. DJ Oliver, he signed with West Virginia. Connor Knight stayed home, went to UAB, so we'll see him in the future. Daryl Sweeting, who kind of threw some shade that, you know, his commitment wasn't going to be honored, I guess would be the nice way to put it. I think Connor Knight did the same thing. He's at Temple, so we'll see him. And then Braden Ramey from Trinity Catholic, he has not committed or signed anywhere either. So of the 5 guys, really only, I mean, I say that, and Temple beat USF's ass and made them fire their coach. So, I mean, they literally made USF quit. But only DJ Oliver went to a bigger school in theory. And we kind of knew that was probably going to be the case. Even if Jeff Scott stuck around, they were going to have to really fight to keep him on board anyway. So that's a good job. That's a good job by them. I think the top 5 guys in this signing class were all guys that Golesh recruited and signed. And they were all, 85 and above of the top 4. So I'm okay with it. Seth, I know before we kind of wrap up, before we kind of started, you had kind of broken down the player rankings from the, I guess, quote unquote, New American. Do you have that kind of available or just handy?
I know that. So 24/7 still has the old conferences up, but Looking at a combined, UTSA had the top G5 class by most metrics. I think they're in the 50s overall, so they had a pretty good class. But they'd be number one in the New American in average. I think SMU was 2. UAB was 3rd, and then USF would be 4th, and not far behind UAB, if I recall correctly. And UAB only signed 12 guys, I think. So they signed a pretty small class and had a pretty good player average. But I believe, if I'm correct, USF was pretty close on the player average and obviously signed some a little more than 12. So kind of in the top third.
That does bring up a good point with this recruiting cycle. It's really hard to gauge a metric of success because with the portal kind of being what it is right now, there's a lot of variances on how it's being attacked. It's no longer, you're taking 25 high school guys guaranteed, and you might take a handful of transfers. Now a lot of schools are doing a good amount of transfers, anywhere between like 5 and 20, and then you kind of fill the rest with high school guys. And so that kind of opens the door for a group of 5 program like USF to be able to get a guy who they may not have gotten in years past. A guy like Jarvis Lee would absolutely be a take at Georgia Tech or Virginia or some of the other top schools. Same thing with Stantavius. Same thing with a few others. And, because those schools like Florida State and Georgia and Miami, they might say, instead of taking a high 3-star, low 4-star player, we'll take a guy who is a 4-star at Oregon that wants to come back home or something like that, or a guy that they had a pre-existing relationship with and do it that way. And so USF and other schools really benefit from it. And I think it happened at Florida International, Florida Atlantic, happened basically all over the country. A guy may have had an offer from Texas. Texas said, hey, we're going to take this guy instead from the transfer portal. Sorry, we're not going to, send you an NIL or NLI. And then they, decide to go to their next option, which is usually the smaller group of 5 schools. So that's something to keep in mind with this class as it goes forward and the metric of success that we can gauge it at. It's a good thing for USF. They'll probably be able to sneak in a few really high rated guys here at the end because they fell through the Power 5 cracks. But, cool. I want to also bring back reality that, like, yes, USF did really well today. A lot of group of 5 schools did really well today. UTSA, UCF had a phenomenal day recruiting. These non-power programs had
group
great
of 5
days
there anymore, right?
Right, but the point, like, Houston had a great day. Cincinnati flipped a guy from I think Ohio State.
They got Emory Jones in the portal too.
They got Emory Jones. Like every non-SEC Big Ten school had a really strong day today because of that. So just something to keep in mind as you evaluate these classes. It's really hard to evaluate classes right now.
And kind of like you said, with the portal, like these things are always growing too. There's not as much. They're really just snapshots of kind of a moment in time. The rankings as now at the top, I think there's teams that are so far ahead that they're not going to slide very much. But kind of in the middle, bottom middle, I think there's probably room to move with transfers and things like that. And the second normal kind of signing day, you're going to have. Guys like Steve said that slip through the cracks, and maybe a team decides, I'd rather take that transfer. I'll take a guy that's ready to play now instead of putting time into developing a guy. And that's where I think G5 programs can really come up and get guys that in years past, like Steve was saying, they might not have access to. So if you're smart, you can get some good high school guys in the second signing day and also maybe snag some more guys from the portal to fill more immediate needs. But I think I'm sure the class is going to grow from here, but good start for sure.
Agreed. Tulane had a really good day as well. Campbell had a very good day. That's wild to me. Are they going FBS soon?
They've got a former NFL guy. I think Mike Minter is their coach.
The safety?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, Mike Minter. Man, good for him.
So he must just be recruiting like crazy.
He knows how to recruit. My God, he dips into the good parts of Florida to get some guys.
Yeah,
I think our friends in Cullowhee, North Carolina, had a pretty good day too.
They did. They had a pretty good day.
Signed.
Someone had a really bad day. I think the only school that had a bad day recruiting wise was I think it was UMass. I think UMass, and I'm saying this for a reason. And not UMass. Maybe it was UMass. Someone like bottomed out. Like they had like 5 commits today.
Oof.
It was North Texas.
Oh, they're going to be interesting to one to watch because they don't. That guy got so Eric Morris, he was a name on our list, our hot board. He got hired by North Texas. He has not hired a single coach yet on his staff. So I think he's just kind of punting the early sign-in period, it seems like.
Wow.
Basically took they took 2 high schoolers and 2 transfers. Both of them were guys that were transferred back home to the Denton area, which the Denton area is very densely populated with talent. And so very interesting to watch that unfold as a future conference game. Yeah.
Yeah. Western Carolina ended up 121, just behind Coastal Carolina.
They signed 4-star receiver Santana Fleming out of Miami or Fort Lauderdale, somewhere around there. That's a good get. They missed out on Jamari Ford, Johnny Ford's younger brother. He's actually going to Buffalo. But I mean, overall, it's a good day. They have a really talented running back in Desmond Reed from South Florida as well. So they're not hurting for talent there. And I think their quarterback who got hurt transferred out, and they still have the freshman quarterback, I believe. So,
yeah. And they also signed the all-time leading passer in Miami-Dade County.
The lefty, right?
I don't think, but I know he may be. I don't remember. I know he started at I think he started at Miami Northwestern for like 4 years.
Oh wow,
yeah. So he's a dude. He's not big, but if you're starting down there for 4 years, you're probably a dude.
Yeah, for sure. All right, as we wrap this up, Steeg, I'm going to set a timer, okay? And even if you're done or not, Seth, once the timer goes off, you just blanket end the show.
Okay.
Got it?
All right. Let's see. Can we put it on screen?
Yeah. And Steeg, I'm going to give you 2 hours.
Can you add 30 minutes to that?
What do you think is fair? 3-4 minutes? You think you get it out in 4 minutes?
Yeah, I can probably get it out in 3 minutes. I'm also hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so see how this goes.
It's 10 o'clock at night. How have you not eaten dinner yet?
I told you he thinks he lives in Spain.
Seriously.
Spain without the yes.
All right. Everybody sit back, relax.
It's like a 40-yard dash. I'll start on your first word, the first sound.
What a group of condescending pieces of shit those guys are. My God. USF deserves so much better than what they are currently receiving from the media, and this is not directed towards the folks at the local stations, Fox 13 and CBS and locals or anything like that. I'm talking about the guys from the Tampa Tribune, the guys from, and slight throw under the bus here, the guys Rivals, they do a good job mostly, but they need a dedicated beat writer, and I'll give credit to Will Turner on this because Will does everything possible that he can for USF athletics, for USF football, for USF basketball, whatever it is. That man goes to every single football game, goes to every single press conference, and he tweeted out that picture of what the press conference looked like for the early signing day, presser that Golesh had, his first early signing day. That should be big news for your local market. That should be a perennial, like that should run front page, your local division university, their early signing period. Here's who they're bringing on. But no one from the Tampa Bay Times was there. Why? Well, let's see. Matt Baker decided to go to Gainesville, and he claims that it's because the market here in Tampa dominates the USF market 2-1. But if you go to any of Matt Baker's tweets, no one in Gainesville, no one as a full fan gives a fuck about what the Tampa Times thinks. They only care about what the Gainesville Sun thinks. But because of their demographic market and because of the booming Gator population here, they decided they're going to go to fucking Gainesville to cover that shit show that Billy Napier put together today. And great, fantastic. You and everyone else in the state, you got to also compete with the fucking Jacksonville Times. You got to deal with the fucking Ocala Times. It's so goddamn stupid that we can't get a competent, journalistic Tampa Bay Times beat writer to cover a local Division I university. They're putting so much effort into every aspect of athletics, and the Times don't give a fuck. They're putting so much money into the on-campus stadium, and then you barely get a Matt Baker thread with shit that I tweet out 45 minutes prior to him. Like, I swear, if I didn't block the guy, I would assume that he steals every content from me. Because I check all the meetings on the meeting minutes on the board of trustees. He just spits out what I shit out of my own dick. So fuck them. Fuck the Tampa Bay Times. Dissolve them. Put them into the Athletic. Get someone who actually gives a shit about USF to cover this school.